What's up, guys? Dusty Grant here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please take a second to subscribe to my channel. It helps me out immensely and costs you nothing. Do it. What is up, everybody? Dusty Grant here, DG and Friends, episode number 2. It looks like for 2 weeks in a row, my gear is working. I can see my guest. It looks like everything is happening how it's supposed to be happening, which continues to blow my mind. But this week I am joined by Matt Quiggins from the Quiggin' Out MMA podcast. Matt and I became friends on social media, actually, and we're into a lot of the same stuff. So I just wanted to bring him on, and his podcast is good. He's got a lot of fighters and stuff coming on, and we enjoy a lot of the same things. So he's a good dude, and I always wanted to chat with him. So Matt, it's nice to have you on. How you doing, brother?
Pretty good, man. And yourself? I mean, I feel like I'm in a whole new world. I'm on the other side of like the teleprompter here.
Yeah, the interviewer becomes the interviewee. That's always interesting, isn't it? Like I felt like on the music side of it, I always found myself kind of the one being asked the questions. So to be on this side of it, it's like, all right, how can I ask this guy questions that don't sound stupid and make him feel awkward, like the questions that sometimes people ask me, So I try to have a little perspective at that, but I'm working on it, just kind of developing the show and figuring out what's going on. So I appreciate you working with me and coming on, man.
You got it, man. Like we've all been there, and I'm no, like famous star. Like I don't have, my name on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Maybe one day, I guarantee it'll be the only Quiggins that's ever on there, but
you never know.
Yeah.
So how long have you been doing your podcast?
So I started doing it actually because of, and I hate even saying it, because of COVID. They had us in our offices for work, and they basically on a Thursday afternoon at about 4:00, they said, "Hey, starting tomorrow, you work from home indefinitely. Like, we don't know when." And I'm like, I don't have anywhere to work. Like, we have a spare room. It's full of junk. And we ended up cleaning out the room that whole weekend. I eventually ended up getting a desk. One of my good friends, James Shaw, I know he's not watching, but I'm going to give him a shout out because he custom built my desk that I have now. And I just decided, I said, I've got the space. I said, what's stopping me? And, I had a, extreme writer's block since probably November. And I wanted some way to still stay relevant and kind of, still be able to tell those stories. And I realized that even though I don't necessarily like the sound of my own voice or being on camera, that I kind of stepped out of that comfort zone, and the Quiggin' Out MMA podcast was born.
So how many episodes have you done so far?
Officially or unofficially?
Well, unofficially, I guess.
So unofficially 24, officially 23. So we have I'll come out with the lost sessions. Ones that didn't make it, or just an interview that, I feel like just person wasn't feeling it. And I think that's part of knowing, this sport. And, I've been covering it for 10 years now. You have to know sometimes when somebody just doesn't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Even if they've agreed to be on the show. And this isn't, specifically pointed at anybody. So if anybody's listening, it's not you. But and you've had those, like, over the years. I mean, I think I've had 3 bad interviews. I've had 3 interviews where I just said, you know what? We're just going to let that one go. And it never saw the light of day. So maybe one day I'll go back and transcribe those and, put them out for the world. But I think, as far as for the fighter's concern and my concern, it just doesn't look good when you can tell somebody's just, they're having a bad day. They've already agreed to it. Their manager already told them they had to do it, whatever the case is. So
well, there's so much weird stuff that I find similarities in between music and the fighters. The guys that I train with, and that we've got some pros that train at our gym and stuff like that. And you never know, what kind of mood somebody's going to be in when they're cutting weight. Yeah. Or if they're dealing with something in their personal life that's really stressing them out, and they've got the fight to think about, and they're wondering if, if they don't win this fight, are they going to get another fight? Can they make a living fighting? It's just like, especially on the fringe and the guys that I'm around and the guys that I'm able to get and talk to. I mean, I'm not going to get GSP to come on here and talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, but
nice name drop. Nice name drop.
The guy, yeah, GSP, if you're listening, if you're one of the few watching the live stream right now, come on anytime you'd like. But like, it's just to watch those guys go through the struggle, and it's almost like being a musician, the same thing. You know, you show up to a gig and you don't feel great, but you still have to perform. And like the interviews, I had another podcaster on the Sprout and Dusty show when I was doing that show. Trent Shanehalls from Thunder Underground. It's like a rock and metal podcast. Mm-hmm. But he was telling us just some horror stories about some of like the rock stars that he interviews, because they get some big guests, and he was like, Doyle was horrible to him. and he, you know, he had a long story about it. So it's one of those things where it's like, you never know what kind of day the person you're interviewing has had, or if something has happened, you know?
Yeah. And I think, as you know, on the media side of it, is on the fan side of it, you have to understand that, you know?
Yeah.
And MMA fighters will make themselves more available to you than any other athlete in any other sport. Any athlete, usually any musician, really. You know, once you get to a certain plateau, you know, you're not able to, you know, message Mike Portnoy. I'm just going to drop him and be like, hey, man, you want to talk? Like, it's not going to happen. And it's not that he, you know, is too good to respond, but he's got 100, 200, 300,000 people doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Where you have fighters who people might not even heard their name prior to an hour ago. And now people get on a message and they're like, oh, my God, yeah, I'll do an interview. Like, that's exciting. Like, let's go. So, you know, if a fighter has an off day, you got to give them some slack. Like
that's the thing, man. I in the metal band that I was in a while back, we opened for some bigger bands, and I'm not gonna out the band or the singer that this was. That's not really what I'm here to do on this show. You know what I mean? But he's a, you know, they're a big metal band. They're heavy. And he showed up to the venue. All the other bands were cool as hell to us, but the lead singer from one band in particular was very shady and just like standoffish and blew everyone off. And so after the show, you know, we're kind of thinking, man, that guy's a dick of all the people. And then we ended up hearing that he's got like bronchitis or something. And like he's been like dying in the bus. He gets off the bus, slays a show, and goes straight back to the bus and goes back to bed. But, you know, but everybody's sitting there going, oh, man, that guy's a dick. And, you know, you have no clue what's going on in his personal life. Like, it's just, that's something when people are watching interviews, especially live interviews like this one. I mean, anything can happen. The broadcast, you know, internet can go bad. Somebody could come down. There's so many tech issues that can happen and stuff like that. It's like, but I think that's kind of the part of the fun of doing live broadcasts, is because it is a little bit gunslinger. You kind of have to just run and gun on the fly, you know. It makes it fun.
For sure. Like right when I started the podcast, there's a poster behind me. I don't know if you could see it behind there.
I can see a little bit.
It's way back there. There's a couple of shirts on it right now, but I hung it up before the show. I'm doing like my pre-work, and the poster comes off the wall. And I was like, I'm so glad that didn't happen during the show, but at the same time, to get that reaction would have been fantastic. So I'm not even, you know, I'm a little upset that it didn't happen during a, you know, what I hope to be a professional broadcast, but
it happened to me on here on Twitch. This is a new venture for me, so I'm just kind of getting used to the just the structure of everything, getting used to the gear, and it's a learning process. But I came on here to play a live show, and like I played the first song, and I just wasn't warmed up or wasn't ready at all, and I just like completely biffed it. And I was like, and I just kind of stopped playing, and everyone was like, and I was like, sorry guys, and everyone's like, it's cool, man. You're just hanging out in your basement playing guitar. We're just chilling. I'm like, oh, this is different than it's a little different than playing a live performance. It almost seems like sometimes this is more intimate than a show or something like that, because like people are already asking questions for you. Like we're gonna pivot right away. And sorry for the bot in the comments there, guys. I forgot to update the bot. I'm unprofessional. This is my second podcast ever. Damn it. But you do have Matt's social media right there, so I didn't forget that. But the first question coming in for you is from Matt Ballard, who's a good friend of mine. He's asking you, who are your go-to bands? What bands are your go-to bands? Like on a daily basis, who do you like?
So I love August Burns Red, hands down.
Nice.
One of my favorites. And you can't really see it, but this poster up here is everything I've gotten. Well, not everything. Most of what I've gotten signed by My Children, My Bride. I will drive hours just to see them, just because the what they bring to the table. Like, and I'm not just in metal, but there's something different about a metal show, and you understand that more than anybody too.
Yeah.
There's just something different about it. As I lay dying, you can put aside all the drama and everything else. Like, we know it was some pretty shady stuff. But really, I'm like, that new album, when it came back, we saw it live, and I got to see it with my brother. And my brother never liked metal, like when we were growing up, and he moved out when he was 15. And somehow we went on this path of like music, and we ended up at the same place. Both really loving it, but at the same time, like, I love Dream Theater, obviously. I love finding bands. I love like Streetlight Manifesto, and some of the old ska stuff. And really, I say old, it's really not that old, but I love the classics. So obviously Rush. That was a rough moment this year. I'm not gonna lie. That was a tough one. Really just because the musicality of it. I grew up. My dad's a drummer. I'm a drummer. Like, that kind of stuff just is ingrained in your head, and you listen to it over and over and over, and you're like, I want to know how to play that. And then you try to play it, and you go, no, I need more time. But also, I love finding stuff like a band called Aquios, and the only reason I even know who they were is because I went to go to My Children, My Bride, like, the website, and I clicked on the wrong day. And that band came up, and I started reading the bio, and I said, well, they sound interesting. And I started playing it, and I went, that's pretty damn good. And I would call it like a funky modern-day Steely Dan. So.
And where are they from? Are they a local band? Do you like to go see local bands and stuff?
I miss going to see local bands. I used to do it all the time.
I'm sorry, you used to like to go see local bands.
No, Acrios is, I want to say, I actually don't even know where they're out of. They're not local for sure. But I want to say, let's see, I'm reading right now. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this. Good job.
Well, yeah, we're gonna do that to you. I'm gonna go see if I can fix that bot. Nothing's changed for you. You can still see me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna try to fix that little bot issue that we have, and just take.
What's cool is that I can't see that, so I think that's funny.
Yeah, I gotta disable this one.
But I'm always afraid to put my mouse on top of the screen, and I realized, like, I'm not recording it, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I need to delete this guy. I do want to delete.
And to really specifically answer Matt's question, my favorite song is a Dream Theater song. It's Stream of Consciousness, the live version they did at Budokan, because it's 10 minutes and 54 seconds of just instrumental blow your mind.
Man, I got somebody asking here, because it sounds like you're a metal guy. Would you say like if your go-to genre is it metal? Because I know you've sent me some music. You've showed me some artists that are like more like blues rock and stuff like that. But would you say metal's like your first love?
Yeah, I mean, metal was something like, obviously
Bingo.
I grew up on, my dad raised me on just about everything. Some of the staples like in my mom's house were Chicago, Journey, The Police, B-52s, Red Hot Chili Peppers. And then it's like with my dad, growing up, like Chad Smith was the first drummer I ever met. I was 10 years old. And he came to little old Tampa, Florida,
Yeah.
Little old, but he came to this place called Thoroughbred Music. It was like a hole in the wall, but it was so cool. And, I just expanded my music, and I'll never forget my dad. It's like 1999, so I was probably 11. If anyone wants to do math, you can tell how old I am now. He gave me Dream Theater Scenes from a Memory, and he loves prog, he loves Rush, and he was like, I don't really care for this. He goes, but I think you will. And that was like my turning point, because like the first album I ever bought myself was Metallica's Black Album.
My first was a Metallica album, but it was Kill 'Em All. So that tells you how old I am.
Listen, and Justice for All came out the year I was born, so it was made for me, so that's fine.
They're asking. Mushu's asking, what do you guys think of the new video of Black Veil Brides? I can honestly say I have never seen it, and I'm not sure I've ever heard a song by Black Veil Brides. Are you familiar with them at all?
I know who they are, and that's about the extent of it. Like,
Same with
I
me.
don't listen to the radio at all, and obviously metal doesn't show up on the radio at all. So Spotify's been my real like savior through all this, because really it'll just start playing something and I'm like, oh man, I love this, and then it'll play something else and something else and something else, and the next thing you know, I end up seeing a band I didn't even know I knew. It was called Frost Coffin. And the guy shows up in like overalls and like a straw hat for the lead singer of the band, and I didn't realize it was them. And they starts playing, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like,
Frost Coffin.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's great. You got to check it out. It's raw, so let's put it that way. But my metal catalog is vague. You know, I don't think vague was the word I was looking for, but you know
Vast.
what I mean. Vast. There you go. It's been a long day.
Just taking a stab at it. I'm definitely not a gatekeeper on music anymore. Like I used to be to the point where I was like, if it ain't metal, it's pussy shit, whatever it was. And I kind of had like that ego about me when I was a younger man, but now like I fully acknowledge that I listen to some pop music and some other stuff like that, and I like what I like these days, and I don't really care what anyone thinks of who I like or what I like. So it makes listening to music a little more enjoyable. You don't have to hold up your image of not being a poser, because sometimes trying not to be a poser sometimes makes you a poser. It's getting deep. It's getting real deep in here.
I think if I'm not mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not, because I love this. Emerson once said, "For nonconformity, the world whips you with its displeasure." So, unfortunately, when you become a nonconformist, you're conforming to nonconformity. So there really is there's no line.
Yeah. There really isn't. Like, in what the back home Derek's saying, like, I'm a music snob. He says, I only listen to the spicy version of Good Times Now. Oh, some friends of mine did an acoustic cover of one of my songs and just killed it, and they just put it out today, so he's giving me shit saying he's not going to listen to my version anymore because theirs is better than mine. And you know what? He's probably right. I'm just flattered that anyone would like something enough to even try to learn it, So I don't blame you, Derek. Check out Ether on Spotify, by the way. I got to shout those guys out. They did me a solid today. I was humbled and flattered by that. You're a jiu-jitsu guy. How long have you been training jiu-jitsu?
That's tough. So I was always kind of afraid of it, to be honest. Like, I always said, I can get into it. So it's probably like 2011, 2012, I started journeying into it. I would go to like one class every 6 months, so I wasn't training. And I remember I went to a guard pass one night, and I rolled with somebody who was way greener than me, like didn't know what things were, didn't know how to calm down. And, everybody knows that white belt, like, speed.
Yes.
Where they're just like, I got to go at 5,000 miles an hour. I got to go. And he put me in an arm bar, and in training, we all know, you do it easy. You don't pull on it. If you know you have it, you just let it go. And he did it, and I felt my elbow pop, and I stayed away for consistently probably for the next 6 years, between work, and then I got a job where I was getting up at 4 a.m, getting home at 7:30 at night. There was no way I was going to class. There was, I just didn't have that. And then I finally got to a point where I have a job where, that allows me to, have my schedule the way I want it, be able to train. And I finally, got to the point where I even got my nephew training, and he was 3 at the time, and now he's 5. Because my sister wanted to put him in karate, and it was like $270 a month.
Wow.
She was a single mom, And I was like, yeah, I'm like, take him to jiu-jitsu. And she said, well, I don't know anywhere. And I said, I do. And she said, do you trust him? And I said, absolutely. So by the first class, couldn't do a somersault, front roll, upset. Now he can take down adults. He's 5.
Yeah.
And he knows how to trip. And you just tell him something once, and he'll remember it. So it's really cool to just watch that. So, last year I said, I got to stick to it. I said, I don't have any excuses anymore. I can afford to train. I have the time to train. If I get hurt, I'm working an office job. There's not really a lot it's going to stop me from doing. I know that's a weird way to look at it.
Have you had any serious injuries since you've been training at all?
No.
Oh, yeah, like that's the thing, dude. I work an office job, and I think I've got 10 years of pretty consistent training. You're a blue belt, correct?
Yep, as of June.
You just got your blue belt. I'm a brown belt. I got my brown belt in December of last year. But like you say, working in an office, and it's like you're right, but at the same time, like I've torn my ACL and had to go sit at a desk all day, and it's like even this is terrible, like you're like I have to do an inventory with a fucking torn ACL. Like it's just, and it does take some intestinal fortitude to just go. And then after you go and realize what it's like when you first step on the mats with guys that know what they're doing, and you realize that they're taking it easy on you and just dominating you. You know what I mean? So it's like a shock to you. So I think it's really hard for a lot of people to handle that with their ego. You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're a big athletic guy and you played sports in college or something, and then you go to jiu-jitsu and you think, oh, I'm going to smash this guy. And some 170-pound dude just folds you in half. It is a blow to your ego. It happened to me. I mean, I got chucked on my head and all kinds of stuff when I first started training. And my only thought was, I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's come at a cost. I've had a couple serious injuries, but you're lucky you haven't had any injuries yet. It seems like you understand that there's more than one speed, the white belt speed. And it took me a little while to learn that, and I got injured a lot before I understood that,
And I think that is the hardest part about jiu-jitsu is the ego factor, and it's come up. It's probably come up a dozen times during the people I've talked to, whether they've been white belts, whether they've been cutmen, who's also blue, purple belts, people who have never trained, or, someone like Ricardo Laborio, who's I've lost track of how many, degree black belt he is. I want to say he's a 6-degree black belt, but he talked about ego and how, like, you have to leave it at the door. You can't go in there. You can't go to class, get smashed by everybody, and go home and go, that sucked. I don't want to do that anymore. You have to take that as a learning experience. And I've told, like I said, 10 years in the sport, watching it, analyzing it, understanding it, you don't understand anything until you're on the mat for an hour.
Yeah.
And you're watching a fight going, why doesn't he just get up? If he just did this, and then you try that exact same move and it doesn't do anything. I've kept a couple white belts from quitting, that they're blue belts now, they've moved up, and it's just a matter of telling them, listen, every minute you're on the mat is 1 minute more than someone else who's never going to train, someone who's sitting at home right now instead of here. And you have to, just like with a fighter, you learn from a loss. You don't learn a lot from a win. If you have a dominant win, you didn't really learn much. You have a shocking loss, you've got a lot to evaluate and, think about and go back on. So, going to that, I just went like, whoo, off there. But
so tell me the chronology. So did you get into jiu-jitsu and then you became fascinated with mixed martial arts and that got you into your podcast, or were you into mixed martial arts before, and then you watch mixed martial arts and you're like, I want to learn jiu-jitsu? Is that how? Because that's how it happened for me. I was watching the fights and I was watching it and I'm like, man, jiu-jitsu is badass. I want to learn how to do that. And so I looked it up, but I know, if you said it's been about 10 years, and I've been a big fan since a little bit before I've been training, so it's like probably 11 or 12 years for me. But it was I watched the fights and then I was like, I want to learn jiu-jitsu. How'd it go for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was years of just hesitation. I watched football. I never played any sports. I was never the physical type. I'm not the person who's out there, those natural athletes who show up and can do, as a white belt, they get promoted within like 6 months because they just have that fortitude and everything else. They have all the skills and they learned it quickly. I watched probably my first fight probably late 2008.
Yeah.
I caught a WEC wreckage, and it was the Faber Brown 2 fight and the Aldo Swanson fight. And my roommates at the time had watched it, and they were like, you got to watch this with us. And I was like, yeah, I'm not really into that violence. I was wrong.
Yeah.
And I kind of fell in love with it, and then it just sort of grew on there. I'd always been writing. I did creative writing. It wasn't anything I ever thought was going to become something. And I was reading an Ultimate MMA magazine, and they had an article about how Rashad Evans lost to Lyoto Machida at UFC 100. And I was like, no, that was UFC 98. Because once I get into something, like, I need to know everything there is to know. I went through all that, and then, I had started working a new job, and I met one of my best friends, Nick Ramirez. He's been on the show a couple times. We went over to his house, and we just watched Pride fights for like 6 hours at a time. And he'd be like, yo, dude, this fight's whack. Don't watch this one. He'd go to the next one.
I want to see him. I would, dude. I know. Even if I don't get an opportunity to watch the fights, but I read about them on Monday and then I go home. Even if I have already read about them, I still go back and watch every single one. I want to see all the fighters. I want to see all the up and comers. And I know you and I could talk MMA forever, but we got a couple of really good questions that I think we should get to. The first one is it pointless for me to train being 37 and huge?
No.
I would say 100% opposite of that. I would say being 37 and huge, you get into training and you get with the right gym when you're with guys that aren't just going to smash you and understand your level of fitness and are going to work with you through that. I think you're going to find things out about yourself that you never knew, and I think it's going to change your life for the better. It's going to clean up your diet. It's going to clean up your mental health. It's going to do, for me, it's like I've taken a lot of damage, man. I've had a lot of injuries. I've had a concussion. I've got a fucking herniated disc right now. I've had 2 knee surgeries. I've had a lot of wear and tear on my body. But what it's done for me, as far as just mentally and emotionally and everything, and the brotherhood that I've developed with the guys that I train with, I mean, it literally changed my life. I was a shithead when I started jiu-jitsu, and I mean, I'm still a shithead, but I'm working to become a little bit less of a shithead each day every time I step on the mats, and I would say there's absolutely no excuse not to try it.
No, and I'm going to add on top of that because, I started gaining some weight, and I said I didn't want to train until I lost the weight.
No.
And I had everybody go, it's the exact opposite. You need to train and lose the weight that way because you're going to learn things about yourself. Being the bigger guy, don't ever take that as an insult. When somebody's like, I don't want to roll with you, it's nothing personal. But when you're able to use your weight and put it on somebody properly,
oh yeah,
even if you're just a big guy, people will fold. And it's kind of a good feeling because you're like, I never knew this would be helpful. And as you start to lose that weight, you still have the mindset of being heavy without being heavy. There's times where I've had people on me half my size can be so heavy that you might as well have another one of me on top. So I would say, there's people training, people who go away from the sport for 15 years and come back. If you're not looking to compete, even if you are, if you're just looking to improve your mental health and gain a new family, train, please.
Yeah. I can't encourage people enough because there's like all levels of people at our gym, and there's guys in there that are absolute fucking murderers, pro fighters, guys that compete every tournament. I mean, and then there's guys that weekend warrior it. There's guys that get in there whenever. I'm one of the guys that, like, if I can train, I do. Anytime I have the free time to train, and like I think my coach understands that. So if I have the opportunity to be there, I'm there. Like, I look forward to it. I want to go. It's not like going to the Y and lifting weights. Like, I would dread going to the gym. when I was just going to the treadmill or going to fucking do bench press or squats or any of that crap.
It's not like, the same.
No, you're learning something. And so it's like you're learning something, so you're not as focused on how physically demanding it is, because there's so much going on mentally while you're trying to think through these scenarios and situations, and you don't even realize that your body is becoming like molded for that specific, martial art or whatever it is. And I would encourage people. We could talk about that forever too. These are awesome questions, guys. Please keep them coming.
Well, and I'm going to add to that is that the feeling you have when your body does something that you didn't tell it to do, probably the best. And I mean, you can have the worst day in the world, and I mean that, the worst day in the world. You get on the mats, you get that frustration out, you get that release, and you leave a better person and more relaxed. It's the strangest thing ever, but it's so true.
It's the fact that you have to turn everything off.
Yeah.
You don't have a choice. Put your fucking phone away. Get on the mats. You can talk all the shit you want, but the truth is going to come out real quick. It's like the old, like, I don't remember who said it. Maybe it was Eddie Bravo. Was it the ultimate douchebag filter? Was that a saying? Have you heard that before? I think it was Eddie Bravo, but he's like, it's the ultimate douchebag filter, because you can come in and say a lot of stuff about what you actually are, but when you step on the mat, we're going to find out for real what kind of a person you are. Are you a good training partner? Are you respectful? It's not just how you roll, or can you. It's like, how is this guy going to roll with the 115-pound white belt girl?
Yeah.
Is he going to be a dick, or is he going to be a good trainer? Like, there's just so much character that happens when you're in that situation, when you have to drop that ego. There's just nothing like it. This is a great one for you, Matt, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thoughts on pro wrestlers going into MMA?
We did a whole show on this.
That's why I figured that was a great question.
So it's interesting when you look at it, because obviously the ones that come to mind more recently, Brock Lesnar. And I watched pro wrestling growing up. I loved pro wrestling. I grew up watching WCW, flipped the channel to WWF when, my parents left the room, that kind of stuff. Because it was like, oh my God, you can't watch that. But it was happening back then. Ken Shamrock, Dan Severn, like all that happened. If you haven't read the Shamrock biography, I highly recommend it.
I have.
You really see a different side of it. But you see how they were trying to bring in Dan Severn to be like, oh, you got to show this guy, he's a real fighter, da da da. But they have to have the personality. Someone like Matt Riddle. I think Matt Riddle's a great example, because Matt Riddle got cut from the UFC for smoking weed.
Yeah, and he's a hell of a fight. I mean, he's a sweet wrestler, obviously, but he was a tough fighter too.
So, if memory serves, he was making under $50,000 a fight, and now he's making millions wrestling. So I feel like Shayna Baszler is another one who's done it, where her MMA record wasn't stellar if you really look at it on paper. It's no disrespect to her, because she, with women fighters over the years, they had to fight whoever they had to fight. It wasn't like the men's talent pool where they're like, all right, we can pull 100 guys for you to fight. You might have had to fight a weight class up, 2 weight classes up, a weight class down, someone who had twice as many, 3 times as many, 4 times as many fights. You didn't have a choice. So for me, Ronda going was, I didn't like it. And I didn't like it just because she didn't go out on her own terms in my book. She had the loss to Holm. She cried about it. She was upset, understandably. Then she comes back and she fights Nunez, and Nunez just destroys her. And it was kind of like her running away. And I don't mean that with any disrespect, but I feel like Brock knew, like, I'm at the top of my game. I can go, I can leave now and I can do this. And, say what you will about Brock, which I never really liked the guy. I didn't like that he beat Frank Mir. I didn't like that he beat Randy Couture.
Say what you want about him, but he won fights with no experience, and his first fight was in the fucking UFC.
Second fight.
Oh, his second fight. Did he have a fight before that?
He had a fight in
Oh,
Japan.
he did. Was it a
Yeah.
real fight or was it a work?
It was a real fighter from
It
what I
was.
understand. But
Okay. All right.
I don't take anything away. If you watch, go and find the footage of Gary Goodridge talking about how the Yakuza came to him before one of his fights and told him to throw it, and he didn't, and then somehow he lost like his next 10 fights by knockout. So like, realistically, if it works for him, it works for him. I don't think they're, to be honest, and I know a lot of fighters would disagree with me, and I hope Tommy Schaaf, I hope you're watching, because if he's on here, he'll probably jump in on this. But if do what you love. If it works for you, it works for you. I hated seeing Kane come over to WWE. I thought that was horrible. He didn't look like the Cain Velasquez of old. He wasn't the same. He had some agility for a big dude. I will give him that. But
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I mean, I knew he went,
but he had a match with Brock, and I was like, why are we doing this? Like, no?
Yeah, Kane already beat the brakes off him in a real fight, right?
Oh, that was a great fight. UFC 121. I told you, it's all.
That's the big thing for me too. Is like, I think if you can cross over from wrestling to MMA and do better, you should. If you can leave MMA and go to pro wrestling and that's going to be better for you, you should. Same thing with this. I'm not a gatekeeper. If you have the stones to step in the freaking cage and throw down, I respect you. People can make fun of CM Punk all they want, but I don't see it that way. I mean, was he a great fighter? No, but I mean, at least you got the stones to try it. You know what I'm saying? Do you agree or no?
I was there for his debut.
You were in person.
Cleveland. Yeah, I was in Cleveland. UFC 203, and it was just. I can tell you this. Like, I get goosebumps thinking about it, but when Cult of Personality hit in that arena, I've never felt anything like that in my life. Not at concerts, not at show, like whatever. Never felt anything like that. And I was like, you know what?
See, I'm getting goosebumps right now.
Yeah. I'm like, maybe he's going to do it. And then, it was just like a one-sided beating. And again, he tried it. He was training. He had some great training partners over, at Rufus Sport. He had Anthony Pettis, and Ben Askren was over there. He had a lot of guys that could help him. And the guy, like you said, he took the chance. I just thought it should have been maybe a one and done.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the second fight was a little egregious, but at the same time, like, from everything I read, that dude still trains like 5 days a week, and he's still he's dedicated to training. Now he's probably not thinking he's going to be in the UFC anymore, but now he trains at least. I got to respect a guy that fucking puts it out there, and he put himself out there on the biggest stage, and he went for it. Good for him, man. And he probably got caked up for doing it too. He probably got paid for that.
Yeah, absolutely. But and now he's doing commentary, and he's fantastic on commentary. And that's the same thing with Bisping. Like, it took me a really long time to like Bisping. Like, it was always that person who was got under your skin. And then he fought Kung Lee at it was UFC Fight Night 147 or 47. And he never kept, he never stopped moving forward. He never stopped trying to finish the fight. And that for me was the best. Tom's complaining that we're talking about music, so he should be jumping on any time.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got Cody Carrillo is my kickboxing coach. I've trained with him for 8 or 9 years. He's a pro fighter, super exciting. I'll have to hook you up with him because he's an amazing interview. I did a video with him that I'll send to you so you can get a little insight on him. But he's asking you, what's the best walkout you've ever seen?
That one? No,
the CM Punk one?
No, it was actually Dave Caveman Rickles. It was the dinosaur. The first time he brought it out, it was the second Bellator that I had ever covered. And I remember sitting there waiting to take a picture, and one of the production guys pulled me aside and was like, "Whatever you do, have your camera ready." And he's like, awesome. He goes, "This shit's gonna be amazing." And I was like, "I don't understand." And Caveman walked out, and I just went, "He's got a giant T-Rex, just walking down like it's totally normal." That ranks up there. Obviously, the CM Punk one. Oh gosh.
I mean, that's interesting, man, because I think all roads lead back to the caveman, apparently.
Yeah.
Because I think I met you
Because of caveman.
through the caveman, right? Because I think I saw him on your podcast, and I started following your podcast, and then we reached out to each other. However it happened, whatever.
Oh, I did the same thing once I saw you guys having him on there, because caveman and I have been talking for probably 8 years, and I remember the first time I interviewed him, he had 4 jobs in addition to being a fighter. He was like a bouncer. He worked at a liquor store. Like, he did all this other stuff. And it just blew my mind that these professional athletes still have to work.
Oh, yeah.
You're never going to see, and I always use Tom Brady, and I hate that now it's more relevant because he's in Tampa, but you're never going to see Tom Brady, like, selling hot dogs on the side of the road. You're never going to see him running a car wash. No, that's not a dig to you, Dave, I promise, but it just came up.
I'm telling him.
He's going to watch it and be like, but, fighter pay has changed. It still hasn't gotten to where it needs to be.
Not even close, no.
And you see that a lot, and now with a lot of guys going to bare knuckle and girls going to bare knuckle with Paige Van Zandt, these fighters are putting their lives on the line. They're putting their bodies on the line, and it's become less about guts and glory than it has about securing a future.
Yeah.
And you have to have a contingency plan. And if you find somewhere, like if Paige Van Zandt goes 0-4 in bare knuckle, she'll still have made more money than her entire UFC career. I promise you that.
Probably, yeah.
And invest that money and take off. Like, that's it.
Yeah, but how many people do you see that get to that type of level? I mean, it's so low percentage.
Yeah,
and you watch these guys, you watch these guys that fight and they work jobs and they got kids and families and all this other stuff, and it's like, you're prepared. Do you think it has something to do, like, I guess I know I'm jumping around here a little bit, but do you think it has something to do with maybe the casual fan not understanding what all goes into going in that cage and putting on a performance? I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with casual fans just don't understand the fortitude and the dedication and the skill and the desire and just the sheer will to overcome the nerves and the emotions and all the stuff that those guys go through. Like, just having friends that do it I think I'm more nervous when they fight than they are. When they're walking in, I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And they're like cool as a cucumber, ready to go to work. But it's like, people don't understand what it takes to get to that level, and it's a shitty thing. And it's like, the UFC's doing what they can. They're putting on a ton of events. They've been kicking ass, but as far as putting events on and hitting the mainstream and stuff like that, but casuals just don't understand. Do you agree?
Yeah, and what it is people look at it at the most simplistic way, for any sport, but more so for a fighter. Oh, he just got paid $50,000 for one night's worth of work, for 2 minutes worth of work.
No.
And then you break down, the sacrifices they made from their family, their friends, their body, their jobs, paying the coaches, training facilities, the gym, making sure this goes on, making sure this goes on, the manager, and it's like, there's so much behind the scenes that, that 50,000 sounds great, but maybe it's only 20,000 after, all is said and done. And say you've got an injury and you're out 6 months and it's June. So you've made $20,000 for the whole year. You're not living on that. You're not surviving.
No way.
I think you're absolutely right.
It would, and it's like, everyone talks about that thing where they're like, well, they should just form a union. And it's like, I don't believe that it's that simple. How do you get a guy because there are people that ascend in that sport to become mega freaking rich.
You mean one person?
Yeah, well, I guess one person, yeah. I mean, he's probably still far and away the highest paid fighter in history as far as MMA is concerned, right? I mean, nobody else is even close, right?
I'm pretty sure in 2019 he was still one of the highest paid athletes, and he didn't even fight MMA.
Yeah,
like, I don't even want to say his name. Like, that's how upset I get about it, and my girlfriend will say the same thing, because I just don't feel like he's an amazing athlete. And yes, he prophesized himself moving up the ranks and saying everything. You can find those videos of like a bald 19-year-old kid. But like him and I are like 2 weeks apart in age. Like it's really weird to see it. And proper number 12 is garbage. I'm saying this to everyone. It is garbage.
Well, Conor, I hope Conor McGregor's not watching the show.
Damn it, you said his name. We almost did.
Shit, sorry. I should hashtag it though. It might get us a few more, might get some people to come in and hate in the comments and start really riling shit up in here.
Listen, as much as I hate to say it, the article I wrote that got the most views ever was an article about him, and it basically was saying it was right before the Aldo fight at UFC 189 before it got postponed. And I said how a Jose Aldo loss is a win for the UFC. And, like, people just flock to it because he does bring in the fans, but I feel like he brought in the fans the wrong way. You know, with the antics and John Jones doing a lot of the same things, you know, outside of the cage. But at the end of the day, they're cage fighters.
Yeah.
Like, they're brutal. You know, they're going to be guys that are hard around the edges, but you've also got guys like, I'm going to say Dolph Lundgren just because it's one that comes up. You know, he's like a neuroscientist. Like, he does some crazy stuff. And I know somebody's going to call me out and saying that was wrong, but I believe even like Tisha Torres is working on like her PhD, and it's so cool to see, you know, people understand now that fighters aren't just dumb barbarians. You know, the human cockfighting and all that garbage.
It's not that. It's still, it goes back to like the people don't understand the strategy. I mean, I can even be there explaining it to my, like, if say I'm watching the fights with my dad or something, I can be there. He's like, why are they just laying on the cage like that? I'm like, yep. Dad, have you ever wall wrestled? Like, no. Like, okay, wall wrestle for 15 minutes straight and tell me that you want to, you know, that you're just going to elbow and knee the guy and knock him out. Like, there's so much going on. There's so much gamesmanship, strategy, just everything that goes into it. And I wish more people knew that, because that's one of the things that I honestly fell in love with about it. Once I got past, I mean, of course, the spectacular knockouts and that stuff is cool. But once you get past that, too, there's just a freaking chess match going on every single fight. And it's like, who's going to get the better of who's going to make the first mistake? Somebody's asking who wins in a fight, Dusty or Matt?
Who asked that?
One of my friends from the music scene is asking if me or you win in a fight. What are the rules?
Yeah, like we gotta know. Like, are we fighting dirty?
Yeah, are we bare knuckle boxing? Is it a sanctioned mixed martial arts bout? Is it a jiu-jitsu match? Is it a boxing match? Kickboxing match? Could be Muay Thai. Could be Lethwei. There's all kinds.
Did you just say Lethwei?
Yeah. Have you watched any of those fights lately?
Oh man. So Ike Bailey Flag fights in bare knuckle now. He wants to do that.
He should.
And I'm like, I don't know what that is, and I started looking it up, and I was like, holy shit, Ike, that is some crazy stuff. So shout out, Ike. I hope you're watching.
Have you seen the King Dave LeDuc, the king of Lethwei?
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna send you a link to his Instagram, and you need to follow him immediately. That guy is a absolute savage. You love it. I'll send you a link to it if you're not already there. Okay, so they're saying anything goes fight.
Dusty.
I don't know. I don't even know how big you are. We haven't even seen the tail of the tape.
Here's why. I'll tell you right now. Thrown 2 punches in my life. And I have no shame in telling these stories because I don't care. One missed. And the other one, it was like 10th grade. A girl I was dating broke up with me. We were dating for like 2 weeks. And some kid on the bus was making fun of me. And he just kept going and going and going. And I finally stood up. I walked over to him, and I went, and my hand opened before it hit him in the face.
Just didn't have the heart to punch a guy in the face.
And I looked at my hand, like I closed the fist back up, and I just said, you're not worth it. And I sat down like a psychopath after that.
Dude, now that I'm like, I don't know, a lot of maturity comes with age and all that type of stuff. Like, thinking about the bar fights that I got in when I was like 23, what a dummy. I mean, what an absolute dummy. You could have been killed, stabbed, shot, arrested. I mean, there's so much that goes bad in that scenario and so little that goes good. I mean, your best case scenario is you get like a highlight reel knockout and then someone puts it on World Star or something. You get a bunch of But even then, you're probably still getting arrested because there's video evidence of what you just did to this poor guy. And if you have any training, they're going to think, they're going to think even worse. You're supposed to be this.
That's the time where I can just throw in Con Air for no reason other than Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, have you seen any of the stuff that Nicolas Cage has been doing lately?
So I need to see Jiu-Jitsu because apparently it's him versus aliens and like I'll watch just about any of his stuff. It's kind of like Arnold. Like,
what's up, Monkey?
I'll watch some of those movies and I'll just be like, this is terrible. Like, to be honest, like I love Last Action Hero as a kid.
Me too.
And I watch it as an adult and I'm like, how long is this movie? Like, how is it still going? I don't remember it being anywhere near this long.
The one that I always go back to is Demolition Man.
Oh,
with
God.
Sylvester Stallone. I'm watching that and I'm like, I used to think this movie was like legit. I mean, and it's
hold on, watch your tone there, because they predicted the Great Earthquake of 2012. So let's talk about that in a movie that came out, in the 80s. I want to say it was 85. Somebody correct me.
I have no idea about this.
It might have been the early 90s. Who knows at this point? But I mean, really, 93. My bad. But still, like Wesley Snipes, just everybody that was in that movie. And you never got an answer about the 3 seashells, and that'll bother me until the end of time.
Yeah, it's true. Like, what is going on with the seashells, John Spartan? Tell us a little more about that. I'm going to say
something, and this is specifically for Tom in case he's watching. Because Tom asked me a question under my post. Who lasted longer in a fight, Jim Ehlers or Ike Bailey Flagg? The correct answer was Ike Bailey Flagg by 1 second. I just want you to know that, Tom. Sorry, I had to bring it out for everybody else, but 1 second.
Were they both knocked out by that guy?
Yeah, so Luis Palomino just fought Friday. It was Jim Ehlers. Like they had this huge buildup for the fight. He knocked him out in like 44 seconds. He was supposed to fight Jim on July 24th. Ike took the short notice fight, got knocked out in 45 seconds. It was rough because I love Ike. I've gotten to know him, and I think, segueing into it, that's the hardest part about being a journalist on this side is you get attached to these guys.
Yeah.
You grow fond of them because you've talked to them, you've had the build up, and then you see something happen to them and you're like, this is the worst feeling in the world. The first time I saw Ian McCall fight live, 2012 was my first live UFC, and a few hours before, he had actually invited us up to his hotel room. So he was like one of the first fighters I met. And to see him get knocked down in his fight against Mighty Mouse, I think it was in the first or second round, like my heart stopped. And I was like, oh, I'm more invested in this than I thought. So, yeah, definitely.
I find that a lot too. Like I find that a lot. Like especially knowing guys that have been grinding and doing that type of stuff, and then they finally do get their big opportunity, and it doesn't go their way necessarily the first time out, and it's like. It's just so disappointing because it not disappointing, but it's so like you just feel so
defeated. You feel defeated yourself.
You feel helpless. Weird. You're like, man, I wish there was something I could do to make that situation better because I know what that guy had in his heart and I know how hard he worked and I know how much this meant to him and like that guy deserved a fucking win. But so did the other guy.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it great because you got two guys that are ready to go to war. And it's like there's so much on the line every time they fight. It's just it's one of those things that I just don't think people fully understand it,
But at the same time, when a fighter tells you I'm going to knock him out in the first round and he does it, you're like, he told me that. You heard it. You told me that.
And that's one of those things too. It's like I understand especially the recent surge of bravado from every fighter, the entertainment aspect of it, talking tons of trash, whatever it is, trolling on Twitter, all the shit that's going on between fighters. Now, I understand why they have to do it, but if you're gonna do that, you also have to be prepared to eat shit if it doesn't go your way. If you're saying I'm gonna beat the brakes off this dude and then you go out there and get knocked out, don't expect everyone to be quiet when you've been, attacking this guy's family for 6 weeks and, in the media or whatever it is. Like when it gets a little bit violent at the end there, I mean, don't be surprised, because you got to dance with the one that brought you. You got to sleep in the bed you made. And, when you win, it looks really cool. When you lose, it's like, oh, now you got to take an L with the added, you've got to take the L and the emotional, what I can only imagine. I've never been through that situation, but like you have to take that emotional part. And then you also have to take the backlash for all the shit you talked. It's like, yep. I feel like I would know that I was never good enough to talk that much. So I would just be like, I'm going to go out there and do my best. I don't want to disrespect anybody. I want to go out there and test myself, and that's it. Yeah, and then even if you get knocked, everyone's like, I still kind of like that guy. He seemed humble. You might get a couple Twitter followers off it or something along with that, along with that $500, bonus check or whatever. And it's like, it just blows me away. Some of the stuff, like some of the offers that you hear and some of the things, even when the UFC prints its payroll for an event, I'm like, people on the prelims on a fucking UFC pay-per-view are making $6,000.
Yeah.
What? That is nuts to me.
I'm gonna change the tone on you, and I'm gonna ask you a question that I'm also gonna answer.
Okay.
So one of my friends, Victoria, asked if you could drink one beer for the rest of your life, what would it be?
That's interesting because I saw that question and I have it written down, and I always have some prep questions just in case, but I didn't figure you and I would need them, so I've used absolutely zero of them tonight. But if I could pick one beer for the rest of my life, it would probably be Boulevard Wheat. Ooh. It's a Kansas City beer. I would say Modelo, but Modelo kind of betrayed me today. I went to my liquor store and the Boulevard Wheat was $3 cheaper for a 12-pack than the Modelo.
Oh my God.
I was like, easy Modelo, let's not get carried away. So I bought a 12-pack of Boulevard, and I'm back on the Boulevard train while the prices are reasonable, and I'm going to support them. I'm riding or die with Boulevard. Oh, my brother-in-law says Tonya. That's the beer from Nicaragua, which is also amazing, but the U.S. version of Tonya is not good at all. The Nicaraguan version of Tonya, when you're in Nicaragua drinking it, is delicious, but the Tonya that you get here, like the imported, it's not the same. No. So what's yours? What's your go-to?
So mine's a little bit more specific, and I only say this because, I've said this out in public. So if I go back on it, I can't really go. So there's a local brewery around the corner. It's called Stillhouse Brewery. They have anywhere from 26 to 32 beers of their own on tap at all times. And they have an Irish red, and it's called Seamus McFeely, and it is definitely my favorite beer. If you told me I could drink one beer for the rest of my life, that would be it, because it's smooth, it's perfect. I love reds.
So do
until they get to like the Imperial red kind of, part of the spectrum. I think Diver Down is my best example of that, where you're just like, all right, that's a little too hoppy for a red for me.
Yeah.
But what I love about the Seamus is that it never tastes the same. And I think that's part of the allure, is that it's never the exact same, even if they use the exact same ingredients, the exact same amount, the exact same time, everything. There's always something that changes just a little bit, to the point where it changed so much they couldn't call it a Seamus the last time.
That's a great choice, too, because if you're drinking that every day for the rest of your life, you get a different beer every day. That's a very wise choice. I just learned something from you today. It took exactly 1 hour for me to learn something from you today.
Oh man, you should have let me talk more often.
I'm just kidding. All right, Matt. So we're approaching the end here. Why don't you tell everybody how they can connect with you?
So I write for combatpress.com. When you do see it, I'll tell everybody here first. I do a crystal ball article every year, kind of what I think will happen next year. I can usually get like 2 out of 5 right, because I'll do 5. It's strictly UFC just because it's easier and it's kind of, a little bit more accessible to everybody. I don't want to start calling out, like local promotions and everything. As far as the podcast, it's a Quiggin Out MMA podcast. I actually got that name. Give a shout out to one of my old bosses at Best Buy all those years ago. I got really angry one day while we were at work. There was something that was upsetting me, and he just yelled at me and said, "Stop quigging out." And I was like, "That's actually it's good." So it's always kind of stuck there. So
it's good.
The Quiggin Out MMA podcast. I've got it on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts, Anchor, like basically anywhere you can find a podcast. If you don't feel like looking at my face, that's where to go. The YouTube ones, you'll see me laughing most of the time, or in like stunned amazement, because honestly, people are letting me talk to them and have these conversations. And, it's just, I love being able to tell the story. So, if there's anything you guys want to know, Quiggins MMA on Twitter, Quiggins MMA or Quiggin Out MMA. I've got one for the podcast. Same thing on Instagram. If you write me and you want to know something, or you want to, talk about something, especially even fighters, I'd love to talk to anybody, because I'm not just stuck on interviewing the top 10 guys in the division.
Right.
One day that number 27 is going to be a number 1. They're going to move up the ranks, and, it's just my passion really just to tell a story and kind of figure out how I can tell it in a way that no one else has.
Man, you tell a great story. I am humbled and honored that you came on to talk to me this evening. I feel like we should do it again. It seemed like it was about 5 minutes long, which is a good thing. I sincerely appreciate it, man. I'm grateful that you came on. I've actually got some fighter buddies that I'm sure would love to come on and talk to you and tell their story. So I could put you in touch. I know there's a lot of good things that'll happen from this. Matt,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Guys, if you're not following me yet, follow me on Twitch. This is where I'm going to be doing most of my live stream broadcast music, this show, some other ideas that I've got in the works, but I'm not going to announce yet. Please follow me here. I'm going to have this episode up on my YouTube channel as well. Probably be maybe tomorrow night or Friday before I get it up, but Matt, I'll send you the link as soon as I have it ready to go. It was an honor, pleasure. Dude, I appreciate you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time. I will be announcing a guest tomorrow, so stay tuned. Have a good night, y'all. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, man.